Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Knitting Podcast and this is episode 43. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. I hope you're all well. Got a nice beverage and you're knitting or crafting of whatever sort, and yeah, let's get into what I've been working on this week. So I have got one finished object and 3 whips to talk about today. And I will start off by mentioning what I am wearing today because I always forget. So this is the Wood Anemone Pullover by SARI NORDLUND, and I knit this up in Mayu by ANEMONE, which was a yarn that I picked up at the Knitting and Stitching show. It was a new yarn to me, and I think it was a wool, no it wasn't a wool, it was an alpaca, cashmere and silk blend. And it was really lovely to work with. It's really lovely to wear. It's very, very soft, very easy wearing. I've just got a camisole underneath this, so it's very easy to wear next to skin, and I really love how this pattern worked up as well. It's very, very kind of dressed up but also quite casual, and it's very warm and cozy, so it sort of gives me that feel that I'm a little bit more dressed up but still kind of warm and cozy and almost like hidden pajamas, if that makes any sense. But yes, so that is what I'm wearing. And for my first finished object, I have been delving into my accessory knitting for this season, and have finally managed to tick something off of the list of the list that I had from my autumn knitting and crafting plans, which is quite nice. I did kind of feel like I was really falling behind with that, so it's nice to have something ticked off the list. And so this is a pair of the Clara's Playtime mitts, which is a pattern by AIMEE SHER, and I have knit this pattern up before. I knit up a pair of convertible mittens for my daughter, and I decided to use it to modify, I decided to modify it to make a pair of fingerless gloves for my husband. Everything is covered in thread at the moment because I've been doing some sewing, and I have not tidied up this room or hoovered it yet because I'm kind of like midway through. So everything is just covered in threads. But yes, anyway, I knit these up using Lotus Yarn's Cashmere DK, which is a 100% Mongolian cashmere. And you get 182 meters per 55 grams. And I used colour 7. I picked this up at the Knitting and Stitching show this year. And this is what the yarn band looks like. I don't know if that's helpful to see the yarn bands. If it is, let me know and I will try and do it more often. I had this one hanging around, so I thought, oh, might as well show it off. So these are a pair of heavily modified Clara's Playtime mitts. So both me and my husband have quite sort of, we don't have particularly broad palms. So I used the adult small because that was going to give me the circumference that was going to fit him best. And I essentially knit them to, I shortened the ribbing. I think the pattern suggested 7.5 centimeters of ribbing and I did 5. And I did a tubular cast on it as well, which was purely personal preference. So I did the 5 centimeters of the 1x1 rib, and then I did follow the pattern for all of the increases, but that wasn't going to give me enough length to get to where I needed the thumb split to be. So I did just add in a few more rounds of just stockinette to get me to the point where it was going to be comfortable for my husband to have his thumb split. And then I also had to add length on like the palm section up here, to this bit essentially, to kind of make them long enough before I then kind of delved into the world of splitting the round 4 fingers. And actually it was a lot less sort of complicated than I thought it was going to be. I essentially just split my stitches into 4, and I did knit them once. I knit the first one with just the amount of stitches that I had for like a quarter of the full round, and got my husband to try them on and they were just too tight. So I then ripped that back and added in 3 stitches. I just did a what is it, backwards loop cast on to add in 3 stitches on this side of the finger, and got my husband to try that on again, and he said that was fine. So I then knit 7 rounds for the finger and then 4 rounds of 1x1 rib and did a tubular bind off just to get them to the point where they were going to be a good length, but then they weren't going to roll back. I thought if I just did stockinette and then just cast them off, then they'd just want to kind of roll back down, and that A, wouldn't be very comfortable, and B, would look a bit naff. So I added in the 1x1 rib just to kind of finish them off nicely and get them to sit quite nicely. And I think it's worked quite well. They look fairly sort of sleek. I also wasn't really all that fussed about them because they are just a pair of fingerless mitts, and most of the time my husband will probably wear these when he's working from home or when we're walking the dog. So they didn't need to be hugely fancy, they kind of just needed to be functional. And I think, to be honest, I have kind of achieved fairly fancy fingerless gloves and functional, so I'm quite happy with them. I did exactly the same for the other 2 sort of longer fingers, and then the only difference that I did for the little finger was to only knit 5 rounds just so that it was a little bit shorter, and then the 4 rounds of ribbing and the tubular bind off. And I did 7 rounds of stockinette for the thumb before then doing 4 rounds of ribbing and the tubular bind off again. So it was all fairly simple and easygoing. But there was quite a lot of trying on to kind of get them to fit my husband's hands perfectly. But I think that's quite common, to be honest. Everybody's hands are different. Everybody has like different finger widths and lengths and palm widths and everything. So yeah, it was quite a simple but sort of lengthy process, if that makes any sense. The yarn worked up really, really nicely. It wasn't at all splitty, which I did find a little bit with the Cardiff Cashmere, that it was quite easy to split the yarn, whereas this one wasn't. And because you get that kind of like signature little bit of fuzz from the cashmere, it means that they filled in quite nicely so that there's not a lot of like gaps for the wind to get through, which is very, very nice. And yeah, my husband is very, very happy with these. I'm very happy with them. And so I think they are a great success. I used 39 grams of the 55 gram skein, so I do have a little bit left over. And these are so light. I don't think he's even going to notice that these are in his pocket. They are surprisingly light. And I think that's quite nice, to be honest, because no one wants anything sort of like bulky and heavy in their pockets, especially in the winter when you're going to have other things in there. It's quite nice to have them being quite sort of easy to carry around. But yes, this is what they look like on me. Obviously there is quite a lot of extra fabric here, so if I was to make a pair for myself, I'd probably have to go down to either the child medium or the child large. I did get gauge, but I think my hands are just particularly small. When I've bought like ready to wear gloves, I've had to buy them from the kids section before, so it's not really something that I wasn't prepared for. But yes, this is what they look like on me. Obviously the fingers are far too long on me, so there is that to take into account. But they are very, very warm, very soft, very cozy, and I think they're going to be a great addition to my husband's winter wardrobe. I will have all of the modifications that I made on my Ravelry project page, so if you did want to recreate them, then my modifications will be there if you want to follow those. Although I would say to bear in mind that I only needed to cast on 3 extra stitches for the fingers, but depending on whoever you're knitting them for, you may need to cast on more. So there's still that element of like trial and error, but these were very, very simple to modify. So these took me also next to no time to knit. Because they're a DK weight, they worked up so fast. So I cast these on Friday, October the 18th, and I cast them off on Saturday, October 19th. And so these took me a grand total of 2 days to knit, even with all of the pulling back that I had to do, and the modifications and everything. They were very, very fast to knit. And cost wise, the yarn cost me £20 and the pattern costs £6 and 4p. So grand total for these is about £26 and 4p. I would say that I think that at this size with these modifications, you could get a pair of these out of one ball of Cardiff Cashmere, which would be cheaper because that's, I think, around about £15 a ball now. so that would make them a little bit cheaper. But to be honest, £26 for a pair of cashmere sort of made to measure fingerless gloves, I'm not too fussed about. I think that's a very reasonable price. But yes, that is my first finished object, and I think they are great. My husband's been asking for a pair of fingerless mittens for, I would say, a good year now, so I'm very, very happy to have crossed them off of my list from my autumn crafting plans, and also crossed them off the list of the things that he's asked me to make, because it was definitely a lingering thing on my to-do list for a little while. But yeah, one pair of fingerless mittens. So that now brings me into my whips, and my first whip is a returning whip that has been in hibernation for 2 weeks now, and it is of course my Colette Pullover by SARI NORDLUND, and I am knitting this up out of woolly knit British wool 4-ply in the colour Mustard Fields. It just looks like this, and I am holding this double to get a DK, and so I balled mine up because I frogged this from another pattern, so I balled it up so that it was already like held double, just to make it a little bit easier to knit with, instead of having 2 balls of yarn all the time. I've only got one, which does simplify it a little bit. It makes things a lot less tangled, and I also find it easier to knit with the 2 strands balled together and not drop one strand, which I do tend to do if I'm holding 2 strands together quite often, and it does get annoying then having to like pick it back up or having to like go back and then knit them both together. But I have made a fair bit of progress on this week. So this tea bag marker that I think I got from Beehive Yarns, they do some really good stitch markers, and I love this tea bag. It's very much me because I do love a cup of tea. But yes, this marker is where I was last time I showed this, and so since then I have finished the front panel and I have joined in the round, and I think I've done, what would we say, about 1.5 inches on the body since then in the round. But then I ran out of yarn, and so I decided, not only because I am playing a bit of yarn chicken, but also to get a bit more of an accurate representation of how this is going to fit, I thought, oh, I'll just go ahead and get the collar on it, and then I think I might do the sleeves after that, and then just see how much yarn I have left, because I only had 1 cone of this, and that's about 500 grams. I am teetering on the edge of not having enough yarn. So if I get to the point where I've got the sleeves and the collar on it and I think, oh, okay, then I'm going to have enough yarn left to finish the body at a length where I'm actually going to grab for it and actually want to wear it instead of just finish it for the sake of finishing it, then great. If not, then I think I'll just order an extra hank of the British wool 4-ply from Woolly Knit. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not overly fussed about that. I bought this yarn a long time ago, when it was quite a lot cheaper to get hold of this yarn, but yeah, I'm just happy to have it out of my stash because it's been sitting there lingering for a long time, and I do love this colour. I just couldn't find a pattern that I wanted to work it up into, and I think that this pattern and this colour match perfectly, and I'm very, very happy with my choice of pattern for this. So yeah, I have picked up my stitches for the collar, but I have only knit 1 round, and that is because I then had another project that was a little bit more time sensitive, which I will talk about in a minute. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting the collar on this because it was sitting very, very wide, so I'm very much looking forward to being able to see how this fits. And I think also by the time I finished the sleeves, I might then block it and see how it actually wants to sit. Because of the cables, it's really wanting to like scrunch in at the moment, whereas because this is a drop shoulder, it's going to fall down. So before I knit the ribbing on the end of the sleeves, I think I will just block it, just see how it's sitting, so that I can kind of get everything to a length, and just everything that I want it to be, and really see how it's going to fit on, because cables do really want to open it up. but it's quite difficult to kind of get a full gauge of how long I want the sleeves to be until the body's kind of been blocked and everything. So yeah, that is where I am with that. And I'm really, really enjoying it. I am very happy to have this back in rotation now, because I forgot how much of a fun knit it is. Although it's all over cables and lace, it's not a huge amount of work, if that makes any sense, because there is such a long panel of just knits and purls between the two cables. It means that you are just knitting and purling essentially for quite a big period of time. And so it's very meditative, because then you kind of get into a rhythm of it, and it means that the gaps between the cables just really don't feel very long. And then also you get quite a lot of length as well. So yeah, it's a very kind of easy breezy knit. And also because all the cables go the same way, and then obviously there's just the eyelet rounds between them, it's not a particularly taxing knit. And actually I think it would be really good for kind of like beginner cablers, if you have knit a bit of lace before, or if you kind of want to delve into cables, because there is only one type of cable and they all go the same way and it's only on one round every now and then. I think it would be a really good beginner cable pattern, as long as you are kind of quite happy to delve into the world of charting, because there is only a chart for this pattern. But yeah, that is where I am with this. So yes, I cast this on September the 25th, and so it has currently been on my needles for a grand total of 29 days. But considering two weeks of that it's been sat in a bag, I'm pretty happy with how much work I've managed to do on this. And oh, it's just so squishy. I'm really looking forward to being able to get some more work done on this so that I can get some wear out of it, because I think it's going to be a really lovely layer, and just a really kind of easy to wear jumper. So whip number 2 is my West Sands pullover, and this is in a bag. And this is a test knit that I am doing for Rebecca of Journey Through Yarns, and I am using BC Garn Loch Lomond in the colours, is one missing? No, it's there. In the colours Sand, Nougat, Moss and Pine. So most of these are not attached at the moment, because I think I'm just working through, oh yeah, I am honestly. This has kind of been put down for a little while. I did a load of work on it at the beginning of the week, and then I kind of put it down because I wanted to get going on some other projects as well. So I've not made as much progress on it as I necessarily wanted to. But if I find my marker, this is the front. But I have thrown yarn everywhere. I have finished the body. So this is where I was last week in the ribbing. And so I've finished off the ribbing and done the contrast bind off. I chose to use Pine for the contrast bind off. I think I spoke through this last week that I wanted to use. This is also really jangly. Oh, it's that stitch marker. Sorry, guys. I know that must be really annoying. But yeah, I wanted to use Nougat for the end of the sleeves, just to give them a little bit more kind of longevity, because that is kind of where my jumpers tend to get a little bit grubby every now and then. I did and ah over the idea of doing both sleeve contrast, both of the contrast bind offs on the sleeves in different colours, but I decided against it purely because I would have to then use one of the contrast colours twice. I just thought that would look a bit funny, so I've decided that I'm just going to do them both in Nougat. But yeah, I've made a fair bit of progress, despite the fact that I didn't quite hit the goal of getting the sleeve done. So like I say, finished the ribbing and done the bind off on that, which did take quite some time. There were quite a few stitches because this is quite oversized. Obviously not as many stitches as the larger sizes because I am knitting the smallest size, but it was still quite a lot of stitches to bind off. And this yarn is not the strongest. It's obviously not like it's not a single ply, it's a 2-ply, but it does break very easily if you tug on it too much. And so that was something I was very conscious of whilst I was doing the bind off. But I think it looks beautiful. I love a tubular bind off and a tubular cast on, to be honest. And I think it is a really effective way to cast off this jumper. It's also super duper stretchy. So I think this ribbing is going to block out really nicely. One thing that I have done that is not mentioned in the pattern is, I think it's a bit easier to show on this side. So when I've been changing colour for the bind offs, I have been doing one knit round. So all of the pearl bumps are on the inside and it's completely invisible on the outside, but it stops there being like that kind of odd bit of pearl bump of the old colour when you change colours. So that has kind of given it a little bit more of a elevated look. I think it's definitely kind of made it look a little bit more professional, to not have those little pearl bumps. I know it's a really small thing, but it's something that winds me up when I see it on my own knits. Obviously I'm not going to criticize anybody else, but yeah, it's something that I like to do just to make it look a little bit nicer and to make that join a little bit smoother. And I did the same thing on the contrast cast on at the neck as well, and I would do the same on the bind offs on the sleeves. But yeah, I just think it makes it look a little bit smoother, and there's not that kind of like odd bit of pearl bump that's a little bit jarring, and it's completely invisible. So yeah, that's one addition that I have made to this. So yeah, finished the body and I have picked up the sleeve, and I've done the first band of colourwork on the sleeve. For my size, there are no decreases in the sleeve, but I think for the larger sizes there are some sort of subtle decreases down the sleeve just to get it to taper in quite nicely and stop it being too baggy. But because of the amount of ease and everything, there are no decreases in my sleeve size. So it's just essentially just knitting a tube, which is quite nice. And I managed to just about fit my stitches on a 16-inch circular. So that makes it a little bit easier, because I hate knitting colourwork on magic loop. I just feel like it wreaks havoc on my tension and I just find it really unenjoyable to knit. So I was very, very happy to be able to fit my stitches on a 16-inch circular and just knit them round and round. And I also think it's going to help with my gauge, keep it consistent between the body and the sleeve. So all in all, I will have, I think, 5 stripes of colourwork down the sleeve to get the length that I need. So I have started the second lot of colourwork, and it's knitting up pretty quickly because it is just round and round. I'm not having to worry about any decreases. It's knitting up very quickly, and it is obviously much smaller than the body. So I'm very happy with how it's turning out. I love the little pearl bumps, the texture in the colourwork. I think it just really brings it out beautifully and just gives it that next little extra element of interest. And I love how subtle, to be honest, I love how subtle they are, but they really, really do work wonders to kind of add to the colourwork. So yes, I'm very, very happy with how this is turning out. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it done before my birthday, because it's less than a week away now, and I think that this is quite a lot to get done, like essentially almost 2 sleeves to get done in a week. And also we are heading into the school holiday, so I'm not going to have as much knitting time. So that's a little bit sad, but I would rather be able to give this my full attention, and obviously as it is a test knit, I need to kind of work on giving feedback and everything and making sure that I knit this to the best of my ability. But yeah, I would have really loved to be able to get this done for my birthday. I mean, there may be some stroke of miracle that means that I can, but I'm not really expecting to be able to. So yes, all in all, I cast this on October the 3rd, so it has currently been on my needles for 21 days. Hello, doggo. The dog has now come to visit me as well. Oh, hello. Hello, you want to come up? So I am very happy with my progress. And that is my West Sands pullover. So whip number 3 is a new cast on for this week, and it is the cardigan that I am knitting for my daughter's Halloween costume. And I am denied over what pattern I wanted to knit up for her cardigan for this costume for quite a while. I went between 3 patterns and eventually settled on one that I have knit before. So I chose to knit the Rosa Little cardigan by a long AVEC Anna, which I knit up a white version for her in the summer to wear to a wedding, and so I just decided to knit it up in orange as well. She wears that cardigan so much. I thought, you know what, I'll stick with something that I know that she's going to want to wear, something that she finds comfortable, and something that I know goes well with the dresses that she wears, so that she can get a little bit more wear out of it once Halloween is over. Because I don't want this to be something that only gets worn once a year. I'd like it to be something that she can wear kind of like for the full autumn. And to be honest, like, she's 4, she's not fussed about whether or not she wears it in May or October. So yeah, I also know this knits up really quickly, and it is really enjoyable to knit. It's very simple, very much kind of easy breezy knitting. And that is something that I was kind of looking for, because everything else that I've got on at the moment is quite involved. Like, it's either got cabling or it's got colour work. I wanted something that was also going to be very easy to just pick up and put down. Of course, the dog has now decided to come and be very noisy, so I do apologise if you can hear him. So the yarn that I am using is Lanagatto Baby Alpaca 70, which I frogged from another jumper. So it is looking a little bit noodly. And it just looks like this, and it's a 70% alpaca, 30% wool, and it's a DK weight. So I knit the last version of this cardigan in fingering weight, and I am obviously using a DK weight for this one. The pattern is written for DK weight. I just went with a fingering weight last time because it was a summer wedding, and so I didn't need a particularly heavy layer, which she just needed a light layer, whereas because the weather is much chillier now, I think she'll benefit from the DK. So as you can see, I have made quite a lot of progress on this. It really does knit up quickly. I also went up a size. Last time I knit the age 4, this time I knit the age 6, just to give her a little bit of extra room in this cardigan. And I've also added a bit of extra length to the body compared to the last one. Only about sort of like 2.5 centimeters or so, but I think it's just going to be a little bit, give it a little bit of longevity, so that she can wear it next year as well, and also like just give her the extra option of being able to wear it with like dungarees or skirts or things throughout the year. So I have completed the raglan increases. I love this raglan detail. I think it is so cute, and I think it's really effective, and it's so easy to do. It's just done with yarn overs. I think it really adds just a little bit of interest to what could be quite a basic cardigan. I also decided to do a tubular cast on this one, which I did not do on the last one. And I lengthened the ribbing ever so slightly, because one thing that did irritate me on the last one that I knit was the fact that the ribbing at the collar was very shallow compared to the rest of the ribbing. So it's quite nice to, I thought it would be nice to kind of lengthen that ever so slightly so that it matches the rest of the cardigan. So yes, I have also split the sleeves, and I think I'm at the point where I want to add the ribbing onto the body, but I want to get the sleeves done first, and then kind of see how it sits with the sleeves on, because obviously that makes the yoke pull down, and then we'll make it sit lower before I put the ribbing on the bottom of the body. I also just wasn't really in the mood to knit ribbing last night. I just wanted to knit stockinette, and yeah, so I've picked up for the sleeve, and I will not be doing the gradual decreases on the sleeve on this one. I'm going to do a bit more of a balloon sleeve, first of all because I think it will kind of fit the rest of her Halloween costume a little bit more, and also I think it just gives her a nice option. She'll have one that is kind of very much more springy with the tapered sleeve, and then it's white and much lighter because it was in fingering weight, and then she will have this one which is a little bit heavier in DK weight, and it's got the balloon sleeve and the deeper ribbing, and and it's just a little bit more kind of autumn winter. So yeah, give her some nice options in her wardrobe and be a little bit more seasonably appropriate. I have gone down a needle size from what the pattern suggests. I did not swatch. I swatched for another stockinette cardigan on like a very similar needle size, and then kind of guessed what my gauge would be based on that, which is not particularly scientific, but as I have already... Hello. Hello. What do you want? Can you sit down? I'm nearly finished. Thank you. And kind of guessed what my gauge would be on that, which is not particularly scientific, but as I have already knit this before, I kind of know how this yarn behaves, and I know sort of what gauge I really need for this cardigan. And so I'm pretty sure that I'm bang on, if not like a minute amount off. But this is also a very forgiving knit. So yeah, I don't have much more to go on this, so I should hopefully be ready for the day, especially since I'm not doing any real kind of shaping on the sleeve, and I'm just going to be knitting straight down until I get to the ribbing. So yeah, I'm really enjoying having this on the needles. It's so comforting. It's so nice to just have something that's just straight stockinette that I've already knit before, that I know what I'm doing with. And like I say, this pattern, the last one of these that I knit, she gets so much wear out of it, so I think it is going to be something that's going to be a real staple in her wardrobe, despite it being quite sort of Halloween-y, autumn based. So yeah, very, very happy with this. And so I cast this on October the 21st, and it has currently been on my needles for 3 days, which may also give you an indication of how much I enjoy knitting this, that I have essentially just flown through it. So that is everything from me, knitting wise. I hope I haven't waffled on for too long. I do have a couple of other bits that I thought might be worth mentioning. There will not be a podcast next week. It's the half-term holiday, and it is also my birthday, so I'm going to take a week off. But I will be back the following week with a big roundup of everything I get done over the week, which probably won't be too much because, like I say, it is the half-term holiday and my daughter will be at home with me, so I will not have as much crafting time. So it works out quite nicely anyway. I did get a few questions on the last podcast about the release date for the Amelia top. I do not have a definitive date for that as of yet. Iris, the designer, she has unfortunately had a bit of an injury, which has meant that she's kind of had to stall on it ever so slightly. But when I know more, I will let you all know as and when that's going to be released, because it is a beautiful design, and I know that a couple of people have asked about it, so I just thought I'd mention that. And lastly, thank you all so much for the reception that I got on my video about the knitting and stitching show last week. I was quite nervous putting that out. Obviously I am not a big vlogger. I have never really done much vlogging before, so I am aware that I didn't get that much footage from the show, and that's probably what people wanted to see, but I thought it may have been somewhat helpful to put together what I had, and I wanted to kind of go through what I got as well. So yes, thank you all so much for your reception on that. It's been really nice to chat to you guys in the comments, and I'm just so grateful for everything that you guys do for me on this channel, and everybody who watches, comments, subscribes, all of that. I'm just so grateful. So yeah, I think that's everything from me. So I hope you all have a wonderful 2 weeks. I will catch up with you all in 2 weeks with whatever crafting I get up to. And yeah, happy making.